They say the moon goddess has a sense of humor. I used to think that was just something broken wolves told themselves to feel better about their shitty lives. Turns out, I was wrong about a lot of things. My name is Catherine Green. At least, that's what they've called me for 22 years. The Omega Orphan. The servant girl. The wolf who can't shift, scrubbing floors while others prepare for glory. But here's the thing about secrets. They don't stay buried forever. And what happens when the most powerful man in North America walks into your life and claims you're his destined mate? Well, we will find out in this story. Before we dive in, if this is your first time listening to one of our audiobooks, hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. Stick around until the very end of the video and let me know where in the world you're listening from. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Maid of Rio Grande Pack. The silver burns never stop screaming. I pressed the soaked rag harder against the marble floor, watching crimson drops from my cracked knuckles mix with the soapy water. The grand hall of Rio Grande Moonpack's fortress stretches endlessly before me, every inch of it demanding perfection for tomorrow's mating ceremony. While other wolves primp and preen for their chance at finding their destined mate, I'm here on my knees, scrubbing away their footprints like the ghost I've always been. Catherine. Beta Jason's voice cracks like a whip across the hall. Those tiles better shine bright enough to blind the moon goddess herself, or you'll be sleeping in the kennels again. I don't look up. Never look up. That's survival rule number 1 when you're an Omega orphan with no pack protection and scars that tell stories no one wants to hear. Yes, Beta Jason. I whisper, my voice barely audible over the chaos of preparation happening around me. Laughter echoes from the balcony above. The unmistakable giggle of Sophia Reeves, the pack princess who's been circling the eligible alphas like a vulture since she turned 18. Her voice carries that particular cruelty reserved for those who consider themselves untouchable. Look at her down there, Sophia calls to her friends, still pretending she's got a wolf hiding somewhere inside that broken little body. What do you think, girls? Should we tell her that Omegas like her don't get mates, they get discarded? The pack of she-wolves erupts in cruel laughter, but I've heard worse. I've survived worse. My fingers tighten around the rag as I remember the feel of silver chains, the way my parents screamed before the silence came, the cold concrete of the orphanage floor where they dumped me after. Stop. Don't go there. Not today. I force myself to focus on the repetitive motion. Scrub, rinse, repeat. Scrub, rinse, repeat. It's meditative in its own twisted way. This mindless labor that keeps my hands busy and my mind from wandering to places that could break what's left of me. The fortress buzzes with anticipation. Everywhere I look, pack members are stringing garlands, polishing silver, arranging flowers that cost more than I'll see in a year. Tomorrow, wolves from across Texas will gather here for the grandest mating ceremony in decades. Tomorrow, fated mates will find each other under the full moon's blessing, their bond snapping into place like missing puzzle pieces finally coming home. Tomorrow, I'll still be invisible. Move faster, Omega, snarls Delta James as he storms past, nearly kicking over my bucket. The Alpha King's expected to arrive any moment, and if this place isn't perfect, the Alpha King, the words slip out before I can stop them, earning me a backhand that sends me sprawling across the wet marble. Did I give you permission to speak? Delta James towers over me, his eyes flashing yellow with his wolf's anger. Alpha King Scott Jackson doesn't need to lay eyes on trash like you. Now get back to work before I decide you need another lesson in respect. I taste copper as I push myself back up, my split lip throbbing in time with my racing heart. Alpha King Scott Jackson, the most feared and respected wolf in all of North America. The king who united the warring packs, who brought peace to territories that had been drowning in blood for generations. The king whose mate died under mysterious circumstances 5 years ago, leaving him cold and untouchable. What would someone like him want with our little pack in the middle of nowhere, Texas? I don't have time to wonder. The marble won't scrub itself, and if it's not perfect when he arrives, I'll pay the price in ways that make tonight's backhand feel like a gentle caress. Hours blur together in a haze of silver burns and aching knees. My hands have gone numb, which is almost a blessing. I can't feel the fresh cuts opening where old scars used to be. The other servants give me a wide berth, not out of kindness, but out of fear that my bad luck might be contagious. In their eyes, I see the same thing I've seen my entire life. Disgust, pity, and the uncomfortable reminder that fate can be cruel to those who don't deserve it. But they don't know about the dreams. They don't know that sometimes, late at night when the fortress sleeps, I feel something stirring deep in my chest. Something wild and fierce that doesn't belong to the broken Omega they see during the day. Something that whispers promises of strength and freedom and revenge against those who've made my life a living hell. They don't know that I've been practicing in the woods behind the fortress, trying desperately to summon the wolf that every instinct tells me should be there. They don't know about the strange silver birthmark on my shoulder blade that burns hot whenever the full moon rises, or the way my blood sometimes glows faintly in the dark. They don't know because if they did, I'd be dead before sunrise. Catherine, get these buckets out of the main entrance, orders Luna Margaret, the Alpha's mate, her voice dripping with the kind of disdain reserved for insects you'd rather step on than acknowledge. His Majesty's convoy should be arriving any. The massive oak doors crash open with enough force to rattle the crystal chandeliers overhead. The entire hall falls silent, and that's when he walks in. Alpha King Scott Jackson moves like controlled violence, every step calculated and predatory. He's larger than I imagined, broad shoulders stretching his black leather jacket, dark hair tousled by the Texas wind, and eyes the color of stormy amber that seem to catalog every detail of the room in a single sweep. Power radiates from him like heat from a forge, making every wolf in the vicinity either bow their heads in submission or step back in instinctive fear. I should run. I should melt into the shadows like I always do. Become invisible until the important people finish their important business and forget that creatures like me exist. Instead, I freeze like a deer caught in headlights, still on my knees in the middle of the grand entrance with my cleaning rags scattered around me like evidence of my worthlessness. His eyes find mine across the crowded hall. The world stops. I can't breathe. I can't move. I can't look away from those amber depths that seem to see straight through every wall I've built around my heart. Something electric shoots through my veins, not the familiar burn of silver, but something warm and golden and impossible. The birthmark on my shoulder blade ignites like someone pressed a brand against my skin, and for one terrifying moment, I swear I feel something inside me answer back. My wolf. After years of silence, something deep in my chest purrs with recognition. Mate. The word echoes in my mind like thunder, and from the way King Scott's eyes widen and his nostrils flare, I know he's heard it too. No. I whisper, the sound barely escaping my lips. This can't be happening. But Alpha King Scott Jackson is already moving toward me, his entourage forgotten, his amber eyes locked on mine like I'm the only person in the room. Like I matter. Like I'm not just the broken Omega girl with blood under her fingernails and scars mapping every inch of her skin. The pack around us starts to murmur, confusion, disbelief, outrage building like a gathering storm. And all I can think is, my life as I know it just ended. The question is, will what comes next destroy me or finally set me free? Chapter 2, The Bond. The Alpha King's amber eyes never left mine as he crossed the grand hall, and I knew my life had just shattered into a million pieces. Stop. The command rolls from King Scott's throat with such authority that every wolf in the fortress freezes mid-breath. His massive frame towers over me as I remain frozen on my knees, cleaning rags still clutched in my bleeding hands. What's your name? The question hangs in the air like a loaded gun. I can feel hundreds of eyes burning into my skin, pack members, visiting dignitaries, servants. all waiting to witness whatever sick joke the universe has decided to play on the broken Omega girl. My voice cracks. I clear my throat and try again, hating how small I sound. Catherine Green, Your Majesty. He extends his hand toward me, and the gesture sends shockwaves through the crowd. An Alpha King doesn't touch servants. An Alpha King doesn't acknowledge Omega orphans. An Alpha King certainly doesn't look at girls like me as if we matter. Stand, he says softly, but I hear the steel beneath the gentleness. I stagger to my feet, ignoring the way my knees shake and my vision blurs from exhaustion. The silver burns on my palms throb with fresh agony, but I barely notice. All I can focus on is the impossible sight of Scott Jackson looking at me like I'm something precious instead of something to be discarded. Your Majesty. Alpha Rodriguez steps forward, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Perhaps we should move to more appropriate quarters? The servant girl was just finishing her duties. She stays. King Scott's tone cuts through Rodriguez's babbling like a blade. Then, loud enough for every soul in the hall to hear, I sense a bond. The words hit the crowd like a physical blow. Gasps echo from the balconies above. Someone drops a crystal glass, and it shatters against the marble I'd just finished scrubbing. Impossible, breathes Luna Margaret, her face pale as moonlight. An Alpha King, Sophia's voice carries from the upper gallery, dripping with disbelief and rage. Bonded to a maid? The moon goddess wouldn't be so cruel. But it's Beta Jason who voices what everyone's thinking. Your Majesty, surely you're mistaken. She's nothing but an Omega orphan. Damaged goods. Her bloodline is so diluted she can't even shift properly. Each word lands like a physical blow, confirming every horrible thing I believed about myself for 22 years. I want to run. I want to disappear. I want to wake up from this nightmare where the most powerful man in North America is claiming to feel something for the girl who sleeps in the servants' quarters and hasn't had a decent meal in weeks. This is a mistake, I whisper, backing away from him. You don't know what you're saying. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. King Scott's eyes flash dangerously, and for a moment, I see why entire packs submit to him without question. Are you telling me what I can and cannot sense? I know, Your Majesty, but nothing. He steps closer and I catch his scent. Pine forests and winter storms and something wild that makes my broken wolf whimper with longing. The bond doesn't lie. The crowd erupts in whispered conversations and I catch fragments that make my stomach churn. Disgrace to the crown, political suicide. What will the other packs think? She'll drag him down. Enough. King Scott's roar shakes dust from the ancient beams overhead, and every voice cuts off instantly. Anyone who questions the moon goddesses can take it up with me personally. The threat in his voice is unmistakable. No one speaks, but I can see it in their faces, the disgust, the disbelief, the certainty that I'm somehow tricking or manipulating their king. They think I'm a gold digger, a scheming Omega trying to climb above her station. They don't understand that this is the last thing I ever wanted. This isn't real. I say, my voice stronger now, fueled by humiliation and desperation. You're playing some kind of game. Testing me or the pack, or Catherine. The way he says my name stops me cold. There's pain in his voice, old wounds that mirror the ones carved into my own soul. I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to have the pack question your every decision, your every breath. But I also know what I felt the moment I saw you. His admission sends a ripple of shock through the hall. The great Alpha King, admitting vulnerability, admitting that his pack questions him. I felt it too. I whisper before I can stop myself. The birthmark on my shoulder blade throbs with recognition, and that sleeping part of me purrs again. But that doesn't mean it's real. That doesn't mean. The world tilts sideways. The silver poisoning I've been ignoring for weeks finally catches up to me. The burns on my hands, the cuts on my knees, the exhaustion from working 16-hour days, it all crashes over me at once. My legs give out and I'm falling toward the marble floor that will probably crack my skull open and solve everyone's problems. Strong arms catch me before I hit the ground. King Scott lifts me against his chest like I weigh nothing, and the touch of his skin against mine sends electricity racing through my veins. The crowd presses closer, voices rising in concern and confusion, but he cuts through them all with deadly efficiency. Clear out, he commands. Now, Your Majesty, perhaps the pack doctor, Alpha Rodriguez begins. I said clear out. The alpha dominance in his voice forces every wolf in the hall to submit, heads bowing as they file out in reluctant obedience. Within minutes, the grand hall is empty except for us. King Scott carries me to a small alcove behind the main staircase, somewhere private and shadowed. He sets me down on a stone bench with surprising gentleness, then kneels in front of me, the most powerful wolf in North America, on his knees before a servant girl. Let me see your hands, he says softly. I try to pull away, embarrassed by the state of them, but his grip is firm. When I finally open my palms, his sharp intake of breath tells me everything I need to know about how bad they look. Jesus, Catherine, how long have you been working with silver burns this severe? It doesn't matter, I mumble, trying to close my fists. I'm used to it. You're not used to anything. His voice is rough with barely controlled rage, not at me, but for me. No one should have to be used to this. He pulls a small vial from his jacket pocket, some kind of healing salve that probably costs more than I'll make in a lifetime. With infinite care, he begins spreading it across my wounds, and the relief is immediate and overwhelming. Why? I whisper, watching this king, this powerful, untouchable man, tend to my injuries like I'm something worth saving. Why are you doing this? He's quiet for a long moment, focused on his task. When he finally speaks, his voice is heavy with old grief. I had a mate once, Elena. She died 5 years ago under suspicious circumstances. His hand still on mine. I thought that was it for me. I thought the moon goddess had given me my one chance at happiness and then ripped it away as punishment for my sins. The raw pain in his voice makes my chest ache. I'm sorry. I blame myself, my enemies, the pack politics that put her in danger. He looks up at me then, amber eyes burning with something fierce and desperate. But when I saw you tonight, when I felt that spark, it was like Elena's ghost finally gave me permission to live again. The healing salve tingles against my skin, and I realize he's not just treating my wounds. He's erasing the scars, the silver burns that have marked me as broken for years. My hands are becoming smooth and unblemished, like they belong to someone who matters. I'm not her, I say quietly. I'm not your dead mate, and I'm not some prize to be claimed. I'm just. You're Catherine Green, he interrupts, wrapping my healed hands in soft bandages with the same care most people reserve for priceless artifacts. And you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should terrify me. Instead, it makes that sleeping wolf in my chest stretch and purr with satisfaction. But I can't let myself believe this fairy tale. Not when I know how these stories end for girls like me. The pack will never accept it, I whisper. They'll destroy us both. King Scott's smile is sharp and deadly. Let them try. He stands and offers me his hand again, not as a king commanding a subject, but as a man asking a woman to trust him. The gesture is simple and profound and completely terrifying. The mating ceremony is tomorrow night, he says. I want you there. Not as a servant, but as my guest. The invitation hangs between us like a bridge I'm too afraid to cross. On one side lies everything I've ever known, pain and servitude and the safety of invisibility. On the other side lies the unknown with all its promises and dangers. And if I say no, his smile turns gentle, and for a moment I see past the crown and the power to the man underneath. Then I'll wait, however long it takes. Something inside my chest cracks open at his words, not breaking but blooming. For the first time in my life, someone is offering me a choice. Not demanding, not commanding, but asking. Before I can answer, footsteps echo from the main hall, and voices carry toward our hidden alcove. Find them both. The council won't stand for this. she needs to be eliminated before. King Scott's expression goes deadly cold. Stay here, he commands, but I'm already shaking my head. No. I stand up, surprised by how steady my voice sounds. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. The look he gives me is pure hunger and pride, and something that might be love if I'm brave enough to name it. Together, then. As we step out of the shadows to face whatever's coming, I realize that the girl who was scrubbing floors this morning is gone forever. In her place stands someone I don't recognize yet, someone who might actually be worth an Alpha King's attention. The question is, will she be strong enough to survive what comes next? Chapter 3, Blood Secrets. The pull towards Scott Jackson is becoming impossible to ignore, and it's driving me insane. 3 days have passed since he declared our bond in the Grand Hall, and every second feels like fighting a magnetic force trying to drag me toward him. I catch myself looking for his dark hair in crowds, my heart racing when I hear his voice echoing through the fortress corridors. When he's near, that sleeping wolf in my chest wakes up and practically purrs, begging me to get closer, to touch him, to claim what's apparently mine. But every time I feel myself weakening, I remember the looks on the pack's faces, the disgust, the whispers that follow me everywhere now. Did you hear? The Alpha King's lost his mind over that pathetic Omega. She must have used some kind of spell. There's no other explanation. Mark my words, she'll destroy him, just like she destroys everything else she touches. I'm arranging flowers in the main dining hall for tonight's pre-ceremony feast when Luna Margaret corners me, her perfectly manicured claws extended just enough to draw blood if I make the wrong move. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, she hisses, her voice low enough that the other servants can't hear, but sharp enough to cut glass. But it ends now. I'm not playing any game. I whisper back, not looking up from the white roses that cost more than most people's monthly salary. I never asked for any of this. Didn't you? Her laugh is bitter. A nobody Omega suddenly catching the attention of the most powerful wolf in North America? How convenient. She leans closer, and I smell the cruelty rolling off her in waves. Let me tell you something about your precious Alpha King, little girl. He's not the hero you think he is. His hands are stained with more blood than you can imagine, including... That's enough, Luna Margaret. Scott's voice cuts through her poison like a blade, and we both freeze. He stands in the doorway, looking every inch the dangerous predator in his black suit, amber eyes promising violence to anyone who threatens what's his. Luna Margaret straightens, her mask of respectability sliding back into place. Your Majesty, I was just instructing the servant on proper flower arrangements for tonight's feast. I'm sure you were. His tone suggests he doesn't believe a word of it. Catherine, walk with me. It's not a request. I set down the roses with trembling hands and follow him out of the dining hall, feeling Luna Margaret's hateful gaze burning into my back. Scott leads me through corridors I've never seen before, past portraits of dead Alpha Kings and artifacts from pack wars I've only heard whispered about. Finally, he stops at a heavy oak door and ushers me into what appears to be his private study. The room is masculine and intimidating, leather-bound books, dark wood, weapons mounted on the walls like deadly artwork. But what catches my attention are the files scattered across his massive desk, some marked with official seals, others that look decades old. You've been avoiding me, he says, closing the door behind us. I wrap my arms around myself, suddenly feeling exposed under his intense stare. I've been working. The feast preparations. Don't lie to me, Catherine. He steps closer, and I catch that intoxicating scent of pine and winter storms. I can feel your wolf calling to mine, even when you're 3 floors away. So why are you fighting it? Because I'm terrified. Because every instinct tells me this will end badly. Because girls like me don't get fairy tale endings. Because they hate me, I whisper instead. The entire pack thinks I'm some kind of con artist trying to trap you. They think you're beneath me. His voice is flat, matter of fact. They think you're damaged goods, unworthy of their king. The words hit like physical blows, even though I know they're true. Yes. And what do you think? I look up at him, surprised by the genuine curiosity in his tone. I think they might be right. Something dangerous flashes in his amber eyes. Then you don't know who you really are. Before I can ask what he means, raised voices echo from outside the door. Scott moves to the window, his entire body going rigid as he peers through the heavy curtains. What is it? I ask, but he's already moving toward his desk, shoving papers into drawers with sharp, efficient movements. Stay away from the windows, he commands. And whatever you hear tonight, don't believe everything. The door bursts open without warning. Beta Jason storms in, followed by two wolves I don't recognize, visiting dignitaries, judging by their expensive clothes and the way they carry themselves like they own the world. Your Majesty, Jason begins, but one of the strangers cuts him off. So this is the famous servant girl causing all the commotion. The wolf is older, silver-haired, with cold blue eyes that rake over me like I'm livestock. General Morrison, Trinity River Wolves Pack. I've heard some interesting rumors about your bloodline, girl. My blood turns to ice. Trinity River Wolves. The pack that warred with ours 20 years ago. The pack that... That's enough, Morrison. Scott's voice is deadly quiet. Catherine, leave us. But General Morrison isn't finished. Did you know your parents, child? Before they met their unfortunate end. The world tilts. My parents died in a car accident when I was 2. Morrison's laugh is sharp and cruel. A car accident? Is that what they told you? He turns to Scott with a knowing smirk. Shall I tell her, Your Majesty, or will you? Morrison. Scott's tone could freeze hellfire. Tell me what? My voice sounds foreign to my own ears. The general's smile is all teeth and malice. Your parents, sweet child, were Jason and Elena Silvermoon. Not Omega servants, but Alpha-born traitors who sold pack secrets to enemy forces during the Trinity River Wars. The room spins around me. That's not true. They were executed for treason, Morrison continues, ignoring my denial. Publicly, in front of the entire pack, as an example to others who might consider betraying their own kind. Stop. The word tears from my throat, but he keeps going. Shot with silver bullets and burned on a pyre. Their deaths were broadcast to every pack in Texas as a warning. And their daughter, their traitorous bloodline, was supposed to be eliminated as well. My legs give out. I catch myself against Scott's desk, my vision blurring as everything I thought I knew about my life crumbles around me. But someone took pity on the little Omega orphan, Morrison says, his voice dripping false sympathy. Someone decided to let her live in obscurity, scrubbing floors and emptying chamber pots. How merciful. I look at Scott, desperate for him to deny it, to tell me it's all lies. But the guilt written across his face confirms my worst fears. You knew, I whisper. You knew who I was. His silence is answer enough. How long? My voice breaks. How long have you known? Catherine. How long? Since the moment I saw you, he admits, the words like glass in his throat. I recognize your scent, your bone structure. You look exactly like your mother. The betrayal hits harder than any physical blow. And you said nothing. You let me believe. I was protecting you, he says desperately. If the other packs knew who you really were, they'd want me dead. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. That's why you claim me, isn't it? Not because of some mystical bond, but because you felt guilty about what happened to my parents. No. He steps toward me, but I back away. The bond is real, Catherine. Whatever else you think, that part is. Get away from me. My voice is steady now, cold. Don't touch me. Don't even look at me. General Morrison claps slowly, clearly enjoying the show. How touching. Young love, destroyed by the sins of the past. He turns to Scott with mock concern. Perhaps now you'll come to your senses, Your Majesty. The girl's bloodline is poisoned. Mating with her would be political suicide. Something snaps inside me. The rage I've been swallowing for 22 years finally finds its voice. Get out. I snarl, and for the first time in my life, I feel power crackling through my veins. All of you, get out before I do something we'll all regret. Morrison laughs. The little Omega thinks she has claws. How? The windows explode. Every piece of glass in the study shatters simultaneously, spraying the room with glittering shards. The power surge hits me like lightning, and suddenly I can feel every wolf in the fortress, their heartbeats, their fear, their submission to whatever force just announced itself through me. Morrison stumbles backward, his face pale with shock. Impossible. Omega wolves can't. She's not Omega. Scott's voice is filled with something that might be pride or terror. She's Alpha-born, the daughter of two of the strongest wolves the Trinity River Wars ever produced. The silence stretches taut as a bowstring. Then Morrison's expression shifts from shock to hunger. Well, this changes everything, doesn't it? He looks between Scott and me like he's calculating odds. The council will be very interested to learn that Jason Silvermoon's daughter is not only alive, but manifesting power. The council can go to hell, Scott growls. Can they? Morrison's smile is sharp. Because last I checked, they still have questions about your first mate's death. Questions that might have very different answers if they knew you were harboring the daughter of the wolves who killed her. The accusation hangs in the air like poison gas. My parents killed Scott's first mate? I look at Scott, waiting for him to deny it, to tell Morrison he's lying. But the guilt and pain written across his features tell me everything I need to know. Catherine, he begins, but I'm already moving toward the door. Stay away from me, I whisper. All of you. Just stay away. I flee the study, Morrison's laughter echoing behind me like a death sentence. But I don't run to my quarters. I don't hide like the broken Omega girl they all think I am. Instead, I head for the grand dining hall, where the pre-ceremony feast is already in full swing. If they want to destroy me with the truth about my bloodline, fine. But I'm done hiding. I'm done being ashamed of who I am. The feast is a glittering spectacle of wealth and power. Visiting alphas from across Texas, their mates dripping in jewels, tables groaning under the weight of delicacies most wolves only dream of tasting. The air thrums with conversation and laughter and the underlying tension of pack politics. I walk into that room with my chin raised and my shoulders back, no longer the invisible servant girl, but someone else entirely. Conversations die as I pass. Wolves turn to stare, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disgust to barely concealed lust. I'm halfway to the head table when Sophia Reeves decides to make her move. Well, she announces loudly, her voice carrying across the entire hall. Look who's decided to join the real wolves for dinner. Tell me, Catherine, are you planning to serve the food? Or did you get confused about which door leads to the kitchen? Laughter ripples through the crowd. Cruel. Mocking sounds that would have sent me fleeing yesterday. Tonight, they just fuel the fire building in my chest. I'm here as a guest, I say clearly, my voice carrying to every corner of the hall. A guest? Sophia's laugh is like breaking glass. Oh, honey, you're not a guest. You're entertainment. The Alpha King's little charity case, performing tricks for scraps from the table. More laughter. Louder now, emboldened by her cruelty. I heard she seduced him with magic, calls out another voice. Dark Omega spells to trap an Alpha's mind. I heard she's been spreading her legs for half the pack, adds someone else. Probably trying to figure out which wolf has the most to offer. The accusations get uglier, more vicious, feeding off each other like wildfire. I stand in the center of it all, feeling their hatred wash over me in waves, and for a moment, I'm that 2-year-old orphan again, helpless and alone. Then I remember whose daughter I am. Are you finished? I ask, my voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The hall falls silent, surprised by my lack of cowering. Good. I continue, walking closer to Sophia's table, because I have something to say. Nobody wants to hear, Sophia begins. I am Catherine Green, daughter of Jason and Elena Silvermoon. My voice carries to every corner of the hall, strong and clear and utterly unashamed. Alpha-born, not Omega. My parents died fighting for what they believed in, and I will not apologize for their blood running through my veins. Gasps echo through the crowd. Silverware clatters against plates as wolves recognize the names, remember the stories. My bloodline is not poisoned. I continue, power crackling through my words. It is not weak. And I am not some helpless servant you can mock and dismiss. You're a traitor's daughter, Sophia hisses, rising from her seat. Your parents were executed for betraying their own pack. You have no place here, no right to. I have every right. The power builds in my chest, hot and golden and ready to be unleashed. I have the right of blood, the right of strength, and the right given to me by the moon goddess herself. The windows begin to rattle. You want to know what I am? I take another step forward, and several wolves shrink back in their seats. I am the daughter of alphas. I am the maid of a king. And I am done pretending to be less than what I was born to be. This is ridiculous, Sophia snarls, but I can smell her fear now, sharp and bitter. You're nobody. You're nothing. You're. The roar that tears from Scott's throat shakes the walls of the ancient fortress. Every wolf in the hall immediately drops their heads in submission, an involuntary response to the overwhelming alpha dominance radiating from their king. Glasses crack. Plates shatter. The massive chandelier above us sways dangerously. Enough. His voice carries the weight of absolute authority, the kind of power that built empires and crushed rebellions. The next wolf who speaks against my mate will answer to me personally. He strides across the hall like avenging death, his amber eyes blazing with protective fury. When he reaches me, he doesn't hesitate. He pulls me against his side, marking me as his in front of every important wolf in Texas. This woman, he announces, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent hall, is Catherine Silvermoon Jackson, my mate, your future queen, and the daughter of two of the bravest wolves I ever knew. The silence is deafening. Anyone who has a problem with that, Scott continues, his smile sharp enough to cut steel, is welcome to discuss it with me. Privately. No one speaks. No one even breathes. But as Scott leads me from the hall, his arm protective around my waist, I catch sight of General Morrison watching from the shadows near the back entrance. His expression is calculating, hungry, like a predator who's just spotted wounded prey. And I know that this public claiming, this declaration of war against everyone who would see me destroyed, has just painted the biggest target imaginable on both our backs. The question is no longer whether we'll survive what's coming. The question is whether we'll face it as allies or enemies. Chapter 4, The Breaking. The mate mark pinned and burns against my throat like a brand, and I can't stop touching it. 2 days have passed since Scott claimed me as his queen in front of the entire pack, and the small silver wolf hanging from its delicate chain has become both my anchor and my torment. He gave it to me the morning after the feast, a traditional mate marking, he said, until the full ceremony could bind us properly under the moon. I should have thrown it back in his face. I should have demanded answers about my parents, about Elena, about the web of lies that seems to surround everything I thought I knew. Instead, I let him place it around my neck like a collar, sealing my fate with the cool kiss of metal against my skin. Now I sit in the fortress library, surrounded by dusty volumes about pack history and bloodline records, trying to piece together the truth from fragments and whispers. The morning sun streams through tall windows, casting long shadows across pages filled with names of the dead. Finding everything you need. I don't look up from the genealogy chart spread across the mahogany table. General Morrison, I was wondering when you'd find me. He settles into the chair across from me uninvited, his cold blue eyes scanning the research materials I've scattered everywhere. Curious about your heritage, I see. Admirable. Most wolves prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. What do you want? I ask, still not meeting his gaze. To finish our conversation from the other day. He leans back, studying me like a specimen under glass. There are things about your parents' death that King Scott hasn't told you. Important things. My hand still on the parchment. Such as who gave the execution order. The words hit like ice water in my veins. I finally look up, and Morrison's smile is sharp with satisfaction at my reaction. You thought it was Alpha Rodriguez, didn't you? Or perhaps some faceless council member making political calculations. His laugh is soft and cruel. No, my dear. The order came from much higher up the chain. Stop playing games, I whisper, hating how my voice shakes. Morrison reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folder, official looking, with government seals and stamps that look decades old. Execution Order 847B, he announces, placing it on the table between us. Signed and sealed by the Alpha King himself. My heart stops. King Jason is dead. He died years before. Not King Jason. Morrison's voice is soft, almost gentle. King Jonathan Jackson. Scott's father. The world tilts sideways. I grab the edge of the table to keep from falling as Morrison opens the folder and slides a document toward me. The letterhead bears the royal seal, and the signature at the bottom is bold and unmistakable. Jonathan Jackson, Alpha King of North America. No. I breathe. But the evidence is right there in black ink. This is fake. You forged this too. I was there, Catherine. Morrison's voice cuts through my denial like a blade. I was Jonathan's general during the Trinity River Wars. I watched him read the intelligence reports about your parents' alleged betrayal. I watched him struggle with the decision for weeks. My vision blurs as I scan the document, taking in phrases that make my blood run cold. Clear and present danger to pack security, collaboration with enemy forces, immediate termination authorized. But here's the part that will really interest you, Morrison continues, his tone conversational despite the bomb he's dropping. Your parents weren't guilty. The words don't compute. What? The intelligence was fabricated. False reports, planted evidence, manufactured communications. Morrison leans forward, and I smell satisfaction rolling off him in waves. Someone wanted Jason and Elena Silvermoon dead, and they used King Jonathan's paranoia to make it happen. Who? The question tears from my throat. Morrison's smile is all teeth. Who do you think benefited most from their deaths? Who gained territory, resources, political influence when two of the strongest alpha families were eliminated? I shake my head, refusing to follow his logic to its inevitable conclusion. The Jackson family, he says anyway. Jonathan consolidated power by removing his biggest rivals. And his son. Morrison's eyes glitter with malice. His son inherited an empire built on the bones of innocent wolves. Scott didn't know, I whispered desperately. He was just a child when... Was he? Morrison pulls out another document, a military service record. Scott Jackson, age 16, enlisted as a junior officer in his father's army. Present for multiple campaigns, including the Trinity River Offensive where your parents died. The blood drains from my face as I read Scott's name on deployment orders, mission reports, casualty lists. He wasn't just present during my parents' execution. He was part of the machine that killed them. He knew. Morrison continues relentlessly. He's always known. And when he saw you scrubbing floors in that hallway, he didn't see his destined mate. He saw an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Redemption. Absolution. A way to ease the guilt that's been eating at him for 20 years. Morrison's voice turns mocking. What better way to atone for murdering someone's parents than to swoop in and save their orphaned daughter? The great Alpha King, playing hero to the girl whose life he helped destroy. Each word lands like a physical blow, and I can feel something breaking apart inside my chest. Not my heart, but something deeper. The fragile trust I'd been building, the hope that maybe, just maybe, I deserve something good. You're lying, I whisper, but the conviction is gone from my voice. Am I? Morrison gathers up the documents with efficient movements. Then ask him yourself. Ask your precious mate why he really claimed you. Ask him if he's been planning this ever since he learned you were alive. He stands to leave, then pauses at the library door. Oh, and Catherine, the council meets tonight to discuss your situation. I'd prepare myself if I were you. They have questions about Scott's judgment, his fitness to rule. Questions that might have very unfortunate answers. Then he's gone, leaving me alone with the evidence of my parents' innocence and the man I'm falling in love with's complicity in their murder. I sit in that library for hours, reading and rereading the documents until the words blur together. Military reports describing my parents as high-value targets. Intelligence briefings detailing their supposed crimes. And through it all, Scott's name appearing again and again. A young soldier following orders, serving the king who signed my family's death warrant. By the time evening falls, I'm numb. Empty. The girl who woke up this morning believing in fairy tale endings has died somewhere between page 12 and page 37 of her family's execution file. The mate mark pendant feels like a noose around my neck. I find Scott in the war room, bent over tactical maps with his advisors. When he looks up and sees me standing in the doorway, his entire face lights up with a smile that would have melted my heart this morning. Now it just makes me feel sick. Catherine. He dismisses the other wolves with a gesture, crossing to me with that predatory grace I used to find thrilling. I was hoping you'd. We need to talk. My voice sounds foreign, hollow. Privately, something in my tone must warn him because his expression shifts from joy to concern. Of course. What's wrong? I wait until the room empties, then pull out the folder Morrison left behind. Scott's eyes immediately fix on the government seals, and I watch his face go pale. Where did you get that? He asks quietly. Does it matter? I set the folder on the war table between us like evidence in a trial. Is it real? For a moment, I think he might deny it. Might lie and tell me it's all fabricated, that Morrison is playing games. Instead, he closes his eyes and nods once. Yes, he whispers. It's real. The confession hits harder than any physical blow. Your father killed my parents. Catherine, your father murdered innocent wolves based on false intelligence, and you knew. My voice is getting stronger now, fueled by rage instead of heartbreak. You've known since the moment you saw me. It's not that simple. Isn't it? The power that's been building in my chest for days finally explodes outward. Every window in the war room cracks, and Scott stumbles backward as the force of my fury hits him. My parents died because your family wanted to eliminate competition. And you saw me scrubbing floors and thought, what a perfect way to ease my guilt. That's not why I claimed you, Scott says desperately, stepping toward me despite the dangerous energy crackling around my body. The bond is real, Catherine. Whatever else you think that part is. The bond is convenient, I snarl, backing away from him. A cosmic coincidence that lets you play savior to the girl your family destroyed. You don't understand the full story. Then tell me. The shout tears from my throat, and somewhere in the distance, I hear glass shatter. Tell me why I shouldn't believe that everything between us is built on lies and guilt and political calculation. Scott runs his hands through his hair, looking older than his 30 years. My father was paranoid during the wars, seeing enemies everywhere, traitors in every shadow. When the intelligence reports came in about your parents. False reports. I know that now, he says quietly. But at the time, with wolves dying every day, territories falling to enemy forces, he made a decision based on incomplete information. He made a decision to murder my family. Yes, the admission seems to cost him something vital. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. But not enough to tell me the truth. I whisper, and the betrayal in my voice makes him flinch. Not enough to give me the choice to decide whether I could love the son of my parents' killer. Because I knew you'd leave, he says desperately. I knew that if you learned the truth before you understood what we could have together. So you manipulated me instead. I reach for the pendant around my neck, my fingers closing around the warm metal. You let me fall for you. Let me believe I might actually matter to someone, all while knowing you were lying to me about the most important thing in my world. Catherine, please. Did you volunteer for the mission? The question comes out deadly quiet. When your father decided to execute my parents, did you ask to be part of the team? The look on his face tells me everything I need to know. You did. The words taste like ashes. You volunteered to help kill them. I was 16 years old, he whispers. I thought I was serving my king, protecting the pack. You were old enough to know right from wrong. I yanked the pendant from my neck, the delicate chain snapping with a sound like breaking bones. You were old enough to choose. The pendant hits the floor between us, and Scott flinches like I've struck him. 20 years. I continue, my voice growing stronger with each word. 20 years you've carried this guilt, and when you saw me, you thought you could make it right by playing the hero. By rescuing the poor orphan girl and giving her a crown she never asked for. It wasn't like that. IT was exactly like that. The roar that tears from my throat doesn't sound human. Power explodes outward from my body, shattering every piece of glass in the room, cracking the stone walls, sending Scott stumbling backward. And for the first time in my life, I feel her. My wolf. Not the timid, broken creature I thought I carried, but something fierce and wild and absolutely furious. She rises in my chest like a phoenix from ashes, all teeth and claws and barely contain violence. You want to know who I really am? I ask, my voice changing, deepening as my wolf presses against my skin. I am Catherine Silvermoon, daughter of Jason and Elena, heir to bloodlines that predate your precious kingdom by centuries. My bones begin to crack and shift. My vision sharpens until I can see every micro-expression on Scott's face, smell the guilt and desperation and love rolling off him in waves. I am not your redemption. I continue as my body begins its first transformation. I am not your second chance. I am not your anything. The change hits like lightning, every nerve ending on fire as 22 years of suppressed power finally breaks free. My wolf is magnificent, larger than any omega should be, silver white with markings that match the birthmark I've carried my entire life. Scott's eyes widen with something that might be fear or awe. Catherine, I bear teeth that could tear out his throat. I am no mate to the son of a murderer. Then I'm running, crashing through the war room's tall windows in an explosion of glass and fury. I hear Scott shouting my name, hear the chaos as guards respond to the destruction, but I'm already gone. Into the wilderness, into the darkness, into whatever comes next for a wolf who's finally learned to howl. Behind me, the fortress burns with the light of 1,000 candles, but I don't look back. I'm done being their victim, done being their charity case, done being anything other than what I was born to be. And what I was born to be, I realize as my paws hit forest soil for the first time, is something they should have killed when they had the chance. The hunt begins now, but this time I'm not the prey. Chapter 5, The Fire and Crown. Blood tastes different when it's your enemies. I stand over the bodies of 6 assassins in a moonlit clearing, my silver white fur matted with crimson, my muzzle dripping with the evidence of what I've become. They found me 3 days after I fled the fortress, Morrison's wolves, sent to eliminate the problem of Catherine Silvermoon once and for all. They thought they were hunting a broken Omega girl. They died learning otherwise. My wolf pants with satisfaction, her bloodlust finally sated after 22 years of suppression. These weren't the first enemies I've killed since transforming. A dozen others lie scattered through the Texas wilderness, scouts, trackers, assassins, all sent to bring back my head as proof that the last silver moon was no longer a threat. I shift back to human form, standing naked among the carnage, and wait for the triumph to come. Instead, I feel empty. Is this what you wanted, Papa? I whisper to the wind, remembering fragments of a voice I can barely recall. Is this the legacy you died for? The forest offers no answers, only the sound of my own breathing and the distant howl of wolves who know better than to approach a predator still drunk on violence. I've been living wild for 2 weeks now, hunting Morrison's forces, learning the true extent of my power, discovering that the birthmark on my shoulder isn't just decoration. It's a map to bloodline abilities that make alpha dominance look like a parlor trick. I can command any wolf within a 50-mile radius. I can track enemies by scent alone across state lines. I can kill with my bare hands and sleep peacefully afterward. But as I stare down at the latest corpse, a young wolf who couldn't have been more than 20, something fractures inside my chest. A true alpha builds, not destroys. The memory hits like lightning, so vivid I stumble backward. My father's voice, speaking words I'd forgotten I ever heard. I see him suddenly, not the faceless stranger from government files, but a man with kind eyes and gentle hands, lifting a 2-year-old girl onto his shoulders. Remember, little moon. His voice echoes across 20 years of buried trauma. Power without purpose is just destruction wearing a crown. The greatest strength lies not in how much you can tear down, but in what you choose to build. The words crack something open inside me that's been locked away since the night my world ended. I sink to my knees in the bloody clearing, finally understanding what these weeks of slaughter have really been about. I haven't been hunting enemies. I've been running from the truth. The truth that Scott's love, however founded in guilt and desperation, felt real when he held me. The truth that for the first time in my life, someone looked at me like I mattered. The truth that destroying him and everything he's built won't bring my parents back. It'll just create more orphans, more broken hearts, more cycles of vengeance that never end. What you choose to build. I whisper, my father's words settling into my bones like a benediction. That's when I hear the explosions. Distant thunder echoes across the wilderness, accompanied by the acrid smell of smoke and the metallic taste of spilled blood carried on the wind. Something massive is burning, not just trees or buildings, but something that screams of pack warfare and territorial destruction. The fortress. I'm running before conscious thought kicks in, my bare feet flying over forest floor, branches whipping at my skin as I race toward the orange glow lighting up the southern horizon. My wolf pushes forward, lending me speed and endurance that turns miles into minutes. What I find when I crest the hill overlooking Rio Grande Pack territory is apocalyptic. The fortress is under siege. Morrison's forces, not the small hunting parties I've been picking off, but a full army, have surrounded Scott's stronghold with military precision. Artillery shells rain down on the ancient walls while assault teams breach the outer defenses. I can see wolves fighting hand-to-hand in the courtyard, hear the screams of the wounded and dying carried on smoke-thick wind. But what stops my heart cold is the sight of Scott himself. He stands alone on the main battlements, no longer the untouchable Alpha King, but a man making his final stand. His black clothes are torn and bloodied. His left arm hangs useless at his side, and even from this distance I can see he's badly wounded. Around him, the last of his loyal guards fall one by one to Morrison's overwhelming numbers. He's going to die. The thought hits me like physical pain, and suddenly I understand with perfect clarity that vengeance means nothing if the man I love, yes, love, despite everything, dies before I can tell him I choose forgiveness over fury. But I don't run down that hill as Catherine Green, the broken servant girl. And I don't run as Catherine Silvermoon, the vengeful daughter seeking blood. I run as Catherine of Rio Grande Moon, rightful heir of 2 bloodlines, future queen not through marriage, but through conquest. My transformation as I race down the hillside is different this time, not driven by rage or pain, but by purpose. My wolf doesn't just emerge. She explodes into being, larger and more magnificent than before. Silver fur blazing with power that makes nearby wolves stop mid-battle to stare. I hit Morrison's rear guard like a natural disaster. The first 3 wolves die before they can even scream. The next 5 barely have time to shift before I tear out their throats with surgical precision. I'm not the wild, bloodthirsty creature I've been for the past 2 weeks. I'm controlled violence, calculated fury, death with a purpose. Word of my arrival spreads through the battlefield like wildfire. Morrison's wolves begin to retreat from the walls, regrouping to face this new threat. I shift back to human form in the center of their formation, naked and unashamed, power crackling around me like visible lightning. General Morrison. My voice carries across the battlefield with alpha dominance that makes every wolf within earshot bare their throats in submission. Face me. He emerges from behind an overturned vehicle, flanked by a dozen of his best fighters. Up close, he looks less like the distinguished general and more like what he really is, a power-hungry vulture feeding on the corpses of better wolves. Catherine Silvermoon, he calls back, his voice carrying theatrical surprise. Come to watch your precious king die? I've come to give you one chance to withdraw your forces and leave Texas permanently. My words drop into the sudden silence like stones into still water. Take it. Morrison's laughter echoes off the fortress walls. You think because you've learned to shift, you can threaten me? Child, I commanded armies when you were still. He never finishes the sentence. I move faster than human eyes can follow, crossing the 50 yards between us in heartbeats. My hand closes around his throat before he can draw breath to scream, lifting him off the ground with strength that shouldn't be possible for someone my size. I am not a child. I whisper, my voice carrying to every wolf on the battlefield. I am the daughter of Jason and Elena Silvermoon. I am the last heir of bloodlines that ruled these territories before your grandfathers were born. I am Catherine of Rio Grande Moon. I pause, letting that sink in, watching understanding dawn in Morrison's bulging eyes. And you, I continue, my grip tightening until his feet kick uselessly in the air, are trespassing on my land. The power that explodes out of me doesn't just knock down Morrison's remaining forces, it commands them. Every wolf on the battlefield suddenly finds themselves compelled to bare their throats, to submit to an authority older and stronger than anything they've ever encountered. This is my territory, I announce, my voice reaching every corner of the battle-scarred courtyard. My pack, my people, anyone who wishes to challenge that claim can step forward now. No one moves. Then you have 60 seconds to leave before I demonstrate why my bloodline was feared across 3 states. Morrison's army breaks like water against stone, fleeing into the wilderness with their unconscious general dragging behind them. Within minutes, the battlefield is empty except for Scott's wounded defenders and the smoking ruins of what used to be an impregnable fortress. I find Scott collapsed against the battlements, barely conscious, his amber eyes struggling to focus as I kneel beside him. Catherine, he whispers, his voice rough with pain and something that might be wonder. You came back. I came home. I correct gently, examining his injuries with hands that are steady despite the chaos around us. There's a difference. He tries to sit up, winces, settles for studying my face like he's memorizing it. I thought you'd never forgive me. I thought so too. I help him lean back against the stone wall, my fingers gentle as they probe the worst of his wounds. But then I remembered something my father told me once, about what it means to be a true alpha. Scott's eyes widen as understanding dawns. You remember him. Pieces. Fragments. Enough. I meet his gaze steadily. Enough to know that he'd want me to build something better than what came before. Not just burn it all down out of spite. Catherine, let me finish. I take his hand, intertwining our fingers. What your father did was unforgivable. What you did, following his orders, participating in their deaths, that was unforgivable too. Pain flashes across his features, but he doesn't look away. But you were 16, I continue. A child soldier following orders from the only parent you had left. And when you saw me 20 years later, maybe part of you was looking for redemption. Maybe part of you was driven by guilt. I lean closer, close enough that my breath touches his face. But the bond is real, isn't it? I whisper. Whatever else brought us together, what we feel, that's real. More real than anything I've ever experienced, he says roughly. Catherine, I love you. Not because of guilt, not because of politics, but because you're the strongest, bravest, most magnificent woman I've ever known. I love you too, I admit, and saying the words aloud feels like stepping off a cliff into open sky. That's why I'm offering you a choice. His eyebrows raise in question. I stand and walk to where his crown has fallen during the battle, a simple circlet of silver and moonstone that's ruled the North American packs for generations. I pick it up, testing its weight, then return to where Scott waits. The council will never accept you as king again, I say matter-of-factly. Not after tonight. Not after choosing me over pack politics. They'll strip you of your title, your lands, your authority. Scott nods slowly. I know, but they might accept me. I hold up the crown, watching moonlight play across its ancient gems. Catherine of Rio Grande Moon, heir to bloodlines they thought were extinct. The wolf who just single-handedly defeated Morrison's army. Catherine, what are you saying? I kneel in front of him, the crown balanced between my palms like an offering. I'm saying that I don't need you to be king for me to love you. I don't need you to rescue me or save me or give me a crown I never asked for. I set the crown aside and take his face in my hands. What I need, I whisper, is a partner. An equal. Someone who chooses to stand beside me not because he has to, but because he wants to. Scott's eyes fill with something that might be tears. Always, he breathes. Catherine, I would choose you over kingdom, crown, everything. I choose you. Then here's my offer. I pick up the crown again, but instead of placing it on my own head, I hold it out to him. Rule beside me, not as my king, but as my equal. Help me build something better than what our fathers left us. A kingdom based on justice instead of fear, strength instead of cruelty, love instead of political calculation. You want to share power, he says wonderfully, like the concept is revolutionary. I want to share everything. I smile, and for the first time in weeks, it reaches my eyes. My crown, my bed, my life. But only if you choose it freely, not because you owe me something or need to atone for the past. Scott struggles to his feet, ignoring his injuries, and takes the crown from my hands. But instead of placing it on his own head, he lifts it toward mine. Catherine of Rio Grande Moon, he says formally, his voice carrying across the ruined courtyard where pack members are beginning to emerge from hiding. Will you accept the crown of North America and the responsibility to rule with justice and strength? I bow my head as he places the ancient circlet on my brow, feeling its weight settle like destiny finally finding its proper place. I accept, I say clearly, and I name Scott Jackson as my chosen consort, my equal partner in ruling these lands. The cheers that go up from our people, because they are ours now, truly ours, echo off the mountains and seem to shake the stars themselves. Later, as dawn breaks over our battered but still standing fortress, I stand on the same balcony where Scott first saw me scrubbing floors. Now I wear a crown instead of servant's rags, and the hand in mine belongs to a man who chose love over duty, justice over tradition. Do you think your parents would be proud? Scott asks quietly, following my gaze toward the sunrise. I think about Jason and Elena Silvermoon, not the traitors from Morrison's files, but the wolves I'm finally beginning to remember. My father's gentle hands, my mother's fierce protection, their shared dream of a world where power served justice instead of the other way around. I think they'd be proud that I learned to forgive, I say finally, and that I chose to build instead of destroy. Scott raises our joined hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to my knuckles. What do we build first, my queen? I smile and turn away from the sunrise, ready to face whatever comes next. Everything, my love. We build everything. Epilogue 1 year later. The grand hall where I once scrubbed floors now hosts dignitaries from across the continent, come to witness the wedding of Queen Catherine and King Consort Scott. But as I walk down the aisle in a gown that costs more than the fortress's entire annual budget, I'm not thinking about politics or power or the crown that will soon rest on both our heads. I'm thinking about the little girl who used to sleep in the servants' quarters, dreaming of a day when someone would look at her like she mattered. And I'm thinking about the man waiting for me at the altar, not because he needs to save me or I need to save him, but because we chose each other, freely, completely, with full knowledge of each other's scars and sins and broken places. When the ceremony is complete and the cheers die down, Scott pulls me close for our first dance as married rulers. Any regrets? He murmurs against my ear. I look around the hall. at our people celebrating, at the future we're building together, at the love we almost lost to pride and pain and politics. Only one, I whisper back. He pulls away to look at me, concern flickering in his amber eyes. I smile and reach up to cup his face. I regret that it took us so long to realize that the greatest power isn't what you can take. It's what you choose to give. He spins me around the dance floor as our subjects cheer and the orchestra plays. And I know with absolute certainty that this is exactly where I belong. Not because fate decided it, not because some mystical bond forced it, but because I chose it. Catherine of Rio Grande Moon, daughter of rebels, queen of North America. Finally, exactly who I was born to be.